The storm rolled in without warning, loud enough to shake the windows and rattle my chest. It was just after midnight. I'd just turned off the TV in the living room and stood up to go check that Maya had locked her window. She always forgot, no matter how many times I reminded her. Thunder cracked like a warning shot as I reached the hallway, and that's when it happened. Lightning lit up the hallway for less than a second, but long enough. She was standing at the end of the corridor, still, silent, head slightly tilted, and in her right hand something gleamed. Long, wet, sharp. I blinked. The lights flickered, then came back on fully. The hallway was empty. Before we dive into the story, we'll love to thank you for your continued support to this channel. If you enjoy this story and stories like this, kindly subscribe and hit on the notification button so you don't miss any of our stories. We will love to hear from you also. Tell us where you're watching from in the comment section. We'll love to give you a shout out in our next video. Now let's begin. My breath caught in my throat. I stepped forward slowly, peering into each room. When I opened Maya's door, she was in bed, eyes closed, back rising and falling with each breath. I stared for a full minute. Nothing. No movement. No noise. The knife, if there ever was one, was gone. I whispered her name. Maya? She didn't respond. Just a quiet sigh in her sleep. Maybe I imagined it. Stress, lack of sleep, or maybe the grief still hiding in my bones from losing her mother 2 years ago. I closed the door gently and went to the kitchen. I didn't need water. I needed answers. But the questions were just beginning. The next morning, everything looked normal again. Maya came downstairs, still wearing her bunny slippers, rubbing her eyes and asking if I'd seen the cereal. She laughed at one of her old cartoons and asked if I could drop her off at the library later. I watched her every move. No sign of the girl I'd seen in the hallway. No bloody object. No cold stare. I almost asked her about it, but I didn't. Something in me whispered don't. Instead, I drove her to the library and waited in the parking lot. She disappeared inside. I waited another 10 minutes, then got out and followed. She wasn't in the library. I asked the front desk, and the lady looked confused. Oh no, sweetie, she never came in here. You sure she said library? My mouth went dry. I walked back to the car. I sat there for nearly an hour, waiting. When Maya finally returned, she climbed into the passenger seat like nothing happened. Thanks, Dad, she said, scrolling her phone. Let's go home. I wanted to ask where she'd been. I wanted to scream. But again, something held me back. That night, I checked the locks twice. Then I placed a small bell on her door handle. And I slept with my bedroom door locked for the first time in my life. The bell never rang. Not once. Yet somehow, things in the house kept shifting. Subtle, just enough to gaslight me into questioning my own memory. The framed photo of Maya's mother on the mantel was turned face down one morning. The garage door was left slightly open, though I hadn't touched it in days. My toolbox had been moved, and my pain meds, half a bottle short. I wasn't losing my mind. I was being toyed with. But Maya remained sweet, smiling, helpful. She made pancakes that Sunday, humming some forgotten tune as she flipped them. I froze mid-bite. I knew that melody. It was the lullaby I used to hear Maya's mother, Amelia, sing to her as a baby. It was never recorded, never written down. It was something private, soft, full of warmth. Hearing it again, in Maya's voice, felt like being punched through time. I asked gently, "Where'd you hear that?" She looked up, fork midair. "What? That song you were humming." "Oh," she smiled, "I don't know. Probably TikTok." I forced a laugh, but my hand was shaking. TikTok didn't know that lullaby. That night, while she was asleep, I snuck into her room. I didn't have a plan, just a desperate need to prove to myself I wasn't unraveling. I moved quietly, the way you do when your heart pounds in your ears. I opened her desk drawer. Some notebooks, lip balm, a library receipt. Normal. Then I saw it. A black journal tucked beneath a stack of old comic books. I flipped it open. The first page was filled with a handwritten list. The title at the top. How to break a mind. Test run. Phase 1, visual misdirection. Hallway. Phase 2, sound triggers, lullaby/laugh track. Phase 3, medication tampering, adjust carefully. Phase 4, gaslight with missing items. Phase 5, emotional mimicry, C. Grief triggers. Phase 6, isolation/rejection attempts. Final phase, get it on record. Encourage, final decision. Each phase had notes beneath it. Observations, dates, reactions. She'd been tracking me like I was a science experiment. I sank to the floor, gripping the journal so tightly the spine bent. My daughter wasn't sleepwalking. She wasn't possessed. She was planning. And it wasn't random cruelty. It was methodical, strategic. I looked around her room, at the glow-in-the-dark stars, the Polaroids stuck to the mirror, the pink throw blanket. None of it made sense with the words I just read. Just then, a creak. I turned. Maya stood in the doorway. I didn't even hear the bell ring. She was expressionless. Looking for something, Dad? I stood, slowly, trying to control my breathing. I was just making sure your window was locked. She smiled. It's okay. You can check. I backed away and left her room, clutching the journal behind me. She didn't try to stop me. But as I closed my door, I could hear her humming that lullaby again. Only this time, it wasn't sweet. It was taunting. I spent the next day in silence. Every move I made felt rehearsed. I smiled, nodded, spoke in even tones. Maya had no idea I'd read the journal. Or maybe she did and wanted me to know. Either way, I couldn't afford another misstep. The game had shifted, and now I had to play it better than she did. After breakfast, I told her I was going to the hardware store. I wasn't. I drove across town to a cheap electronics shop and bought 3 hidden cameras, a pocket voice recorder, and a hard drive. It took me most of the afternoon to install the cameras. One in the hallway, one in the kitchen, and one in the corner of the living room where she always left her phone when talking privately. That night, I acted tired, told her good night, locked my bedroom door. Then I stayed up, watching the feeds. For 2 hours, nothing. Then just past 2 a.m., she came out of her room. Calm. Sleepwalking? No. She looked wide awake. She walked to the living room, opened the drawer beneath the TV stand, and pulled out a legal pad I didn't even know was there. She started writing. Her lips moved. I recorded the feed, zoomed in as best I could. She was rehearsing, practicing. He's been unstable since Mom died. I don't think he should be alone anymore. I'm scared to sleep most nights. I slammed my fist into my desk, teeth clenched so hard I thought they might crack. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't a breakdown. This was a setup. The next morning, I dropped her off at school, waited 5 minutes, then circled back around. As I suspected, she never went in. I followed her, at a distance. She walked 4 blocks to a small cafe and slipped into a booth with someone already waiting. A woman, sharp jawline, long red coat. My stomach dropped. It was Amelia's sister, Lila. I hadn't seen her since the funeral. She had always been a snake in pearls, whispering poison with a smile. She hated me, blamed me for Amelia's depression, her illness, her death. But she was cut out of our lives years before Maya turned 10. What the hell was she doing back? I waited till they left, followed them both, carefully, until they split at a corner. Maya headed home. Lila went into a bank. I went home and checked the cameras again. Rewound footage from 2 nights before. And that's when I saw something that nearly made me scream. Maya was in the mirror, not just passing by. She was standing in front of it, staring, whispering to herself. But her reflection didn't match. It blinked when she didn't. Smiled when she didn't. I paused it. Rewound. Watched again. I thought maybe it was a glitch. But no, it was intentional. She was practicing how to lie to herself. How to become the victim. I looked down at my shaking hands. I couldn't afford to break. Not yet. I needed her to think I was unraveling. I needed to play the part she was scripting for me. Only then would she let her guard down. And when she did, she'd learn that her father wasn't so easy to bury. especially not when he already knew how to dig graves. Maya's 17th birthday was the perfect trap. She expected a quiet day, maybe cake, maybe gifts. But I made sure this one would be unforgettable. I sent out carefully worded invitations to her closest school friends, a few of the family members she actually respected, and even the school counselor she once accused of not caring enough. Then I invited Lila. I needed them all in the same room. I had prepped the living room like a stage, polished, decorated, lit just right. There was a projector set up, and on the surface, everything looked festive. But every move was rehearsed. As guests began to arrive, Maya wore that sweet, flawless smile. She laughed, hugged, fluttered from person to person like a princess at her coronation. She didn't suspect a thing, not even when I handed her a small card and asked her to read it aloud after the cake. The card simply read, "This is what you wanted, right?" She pocketed it with a smirk, probably assuming it was money. We sang the birthday song. Candles blown. Claps all around. Lila gave her a silver bracelet. Amelia's, apparently. Maya gasped and cried on cue. I watched from the corner, every second logged in my mind like a court transcript. Then I dimmed the lights. I wanted to give Maya one more surprise, I said. A gift, but for everyone. I clicked the remote. The projector screen lit up. Static at first, then clear footage from our living room camera. The crowd hushed. They watched Maya in the middle of the night, walking through the house, speaking to herself. The audio was perfect. Her voice rang out, "He's losing it. A few more pushes and he'll break." Lila said if we make it convincing enough, I'll have full control. Everything will be mine. Whispers rippled through the room. Maya stood frozen. I clicked again. A second clip played. This one, the attic camera. Maya standing over a small pile of old photographs, torching them one by one. "This is what you get, Dad. You don't get to forget what you did to her." I paused the screen and turned to face her. The entire room was staring. "Maya," I said calmly, "would you like to explain what I did?" She opened her mouth, but no words came. She looked at Lila, who was already backing toward the door. Too late. Two plainclothes officers stepped into the room, having watched the footage from my backup copy sent earlier. I nodded. Lila was the first to break, screaming about how I brainwashed the family and deserved everything. The officers restrained her. Maya? She didn't cry, didn't scream. She just sat down quietly, hands in her lap, and said, "You were supposed to crack before this." The counselor, who had been silent the whole time, muttered under her breath, "My God." Maya turned to me one last time. "You really couldn't just fall apart like you were meant to?" I leaned in and whispered, so only she could hear. "I did. And while I was down there, I built something stronger." The morning after her arrest, the house felt emptier than it had in years. But it wasn't silence, it was peace. No more footsteps at midnight. No more whispers through the vents. Just the sound of wind outside and the slow hum of the refrigerator. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the journal I'd recovered from Maya's drawer, the one that started it all. Every phase of her plan was mapped out like a military operation. She hadn't just wanted to punish me. She wanted to replace me, strip me of identity, dignity, and legacy. And the cruelest part? She nearly succeeded. But now, I had a plan of my own. I met with my lawyer that afternoon. A revised will, notarized and locked. Maya's name, removed. Every asset, every bank account, every share of the trust fund that Amelia left behind, redirected. Not to punish Maya, but to outmaneuver her. I renamed the trust, the Amelia Foundation for Mental Health and Betrayed Parents. It would provide therapy for those who've been emotionally abused by their children, gaslighted by family, or isolated in their own homes. That money wouldn't go to waste. Then came the final stroke. Maya thought her crimes would be brushed aside because of her age. But she underestimated the reach of digital evidence, and the public shame of a confession aired in front of her school's counselor, friends, and legal witnesses. She was charged not just with attempted fraud, but with reckless endangerment, destruction of property, and conspiracy to defraud a mentally vulnerable guardian. Lila faced separate charges. She tried to blame it all on Maya. Maya didn't flinch. She never even looked at her again in court. When the sentencing was over and the crowd had cleared, I walked up to Maya, chained at the wrists, staring blankly ahead. "You wanted me gone," I said quietly. "You rehearsed my breakdown, practiced my obituary." She finally turned to look at me, her voice low. "You killed her. You don't get to live like nothing happened." I nodded slowly. "You're right. I don't get to live like nothing happened." I leaned in. "That's why I made sure you never will either." Her eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" I handed her a sealed envelope. My final gift. Inside was a certified letter removing her from everything. And another, photographs of the new children's wing in a hospital built with the first donation from the trust. The wing bore Amelia's name. And beside her name, etched into marble, in memory of compassion and in honor of the truth she never got to live. As I walked away, Maya's hands trembled. For once, she wasn't in control. She had staged a breakdown. But I gave her closure. My way. If this story spoke to you till the very end, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who has to hear it. See you in the next story.